We are here today in the European Union House with the great people from the Union of the Baltic Youthful Cities Commission, and we are here on the spot talking with people from Riga, from Panevėžys in Lithuania, from cities in Finland, and as well there are people from Klaipėda, and that is the European Youth City of 2021. And today we have gathered here to have a panel discussion about social impact management. And it is amazing to actually be here because this discussion is in a project that we have created. I am representing National Youth Council of Latvia, and together with organizations from Baltic countries, we have implemented a project during 2 years, and we have created this amazing opportunity for youth organizations and youth field itself to discover more about social impact and social impact management. And during this project, the main aim of this 2-year project with the whole Baltic countries was to improve the skills and knowledge of youth organizations, and as well to kind of raise the narrative of social impact, to understand what it actually is, how to measure it, and as well kind of enable people who are in youth field to do so. And during these 2 years, we have created 4 intellectual outputs or materials to help people who want to measure their social impact to make it more accessible and easy. So the first output that we have created is a needs assessment and overview of best practices. So in this output, we have shared best practices of how youth organizations and social impact and social enterprises are measuring their impact. And as well, we have talked about what is actually social impact and what is the situation in all the Baltic countries nowadays. We have as well created this really cool toolbox that consists of 9 tools, how to actually measure your social impact. So those are 9 easily usable tools that you can use, and they can help you to better understand how to assess it. As well, in order, when you measure your impact and you're doing those all great things, then the question is how to communicate about it, with your team and with larger society. So there's as well a guideline about communication, what to keep in mind, how to communicate all the good things that you're doing in your daily life, in your organization, and as well some communication tips and tricks to improve your communication in general. And the last one that we did was not so much for youth organizations, but as well really useful for society in general, are policy recommendations. And these policy recommendations are basically what needs to change in order to improve the situation. So what needs to change in order to youth field be more enabled to measure their social impact and feel more confident to do so. What's next? So that's a little overview about the project, and now we're going to have the panel discussion. I will give the floor to my colleague, the moderator of this discussion, and she's going to introduce you later. So Ilse, the microphone goes to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. As you will be moving, I'll slowly start also talking on and introducing the panelists. Welcome everyone here, and also welcome everyone who is watching it live online. My name is Ilse and I'll be moderating this discussion, and I am deeply passionate about the subject myself. Having over 20 years of experience in NGOs, I often have pondered whether my work actually makes a difference. And even if I have this positive feedback now and then, I wonder if I'm self-critical enough also to assess whether I'm making a difference. And is it short term or is it long term? And also working as a non-formal education trainer, I see the effect of my work immediately, yet I wonder what happens with participants 5 years, 10 years after the course have happened. So I'm curious about the subject myself. I'm sometimes wondering if I'm doing the good work. And I also noticed that it's much more easier to spot mistakes in somebody else's work than mine. So I hope that with this panel and with this discussion also we will manage to open a wider discussion about the social impact, what is it, and also how youth work can benefit from a critical look at how we work, both as organizations, as centers, and also maybe municipalities. We can talk also about how actually funding is supporting or not supporting such opportunities for us to access independently the impact of our work. And yes, I hope that after this panel you will be inspired to use some of the tools that the Youth Council might have developed, or some of the panelists will be recommending, I hope, also to use for your organizations. So here we have 4 wonderful panelists devoting your free time also to talk about this very important subject, I would say. And on my left we have Pauliine Latsone. You're welcome. And Pauliine has over 20 years of experience working for Latvian Scout and Guide Association, and in the past 5 years she has been specifically focusing on non-formal education and the quality of it in the association. And then we have Kārlis Laškevits, who is a lecturer of the University of Latvia, anthropology department, right? And Kārlis is also joining his academical work with NGOs, and specifically we will be talking also about specific example that has been done in cooperation with Marta Center, that is represented by Madara Mazjāne, and there's a program that is called Dare to Care, that was evaluated by the University of Latvia. But about that later. Madara, you're welcome as well. And Madara has plenty of years experience working in non-formal education with a focus of gender equality, healthy relationships, and so on. And then last but not least, we have Līva Švarce, who is a representative of the Latvian Social Entrepreneurship Association of Latvia, which is also developing social entrepreneurship and enterprises, supporting them in Latvian context. So welcome everyone, and I would like to open this panel with a question specifically to Līva already about what is social impact, and how do you see it from the perspective of the association, and what is the impact that actually is valuable? What is enough of an impact?
Yeah, hello, thanks for inviting me. Yes, social impact in our work is very important, as it is kind of the main difference that distinguishes social enterprise from any other enterprises. So that's like one and the most important point of how to differentiate it. Yeah, when we talk about social impact, I think each of us have a specific definition that we have. And those definitions might differ, basically, I think, but like the main essence of it is that it is an effect of organizations' work or activities on their beneficiaries, on their stakeholders, or on, for example, on environment as well. And yeah, the social impact can be positive, it can be also negative, it can be intended and unintended, so there are like big varieties of what can happen in comparison to like when you see the social impact.
Thank you. And also at Madara and Pauliine, if you look at the NGO field in Latvia, what is the impression that you have how organizations are willing to accept some measures to evaluate social impact? What's your kind of gut feeling or observation? Not only talking about your organizations that you represent, but also what you see around you.
Okay. Yeah, I also would like to thank you for having me here, and it's exciting to be out there in a 2 years' time, right? In relation to your question. I think to answer that, firstly, we need to know what is exactly happening. And I think that's one first challenge what we are facing, at least in the scope of action I'm into, is that we are not sharing enough. That there are resources and approaches and great programs out there, but somehow you got to know about them randomly, or somebody tells you about that. But like I think first, to have an overview what's going on, we need to create a place and time for a meaningful sharing to happen, and see where we can really unite or strengthen activities to achieve this social impact, because there are a lot of great programs which are which might be overlapping with the values they create or behaviors they try to change. But yeah, then how we can do that together. So I don't know if I have given the answer to your question, but I think it's very challenging to get one right answer for this.
Pauline.
Yeah, what I can add is that, like, for example, we, the youth organizations, we are asked for some, like, we are doing the projects, and we are asked for the results, and it's maybe it's not always called as a social impact, but that's what we have to do and share the results of it. And yeah, and I think that if you ask about the situation, then it is like NGOs are asked to do and make the social impact, but I'm not sure that like the organizations really do it here in Latvia, like NGOs or especially the youth organizations. Okay, Maria, she shared what they have done in Latvian Youth Council, and I think it's good, but I think that there is a lot more to do, to, as Mother said, to share the results and show that, yeah, look, this is what we are doing and this is the impact of what we are doing. Because that is what, like, we have, I think, fought for all these 30 years to prove what are this impact of youth organizations, and still we have to prove and prove again what is our impact and the results that we are doing good for youth and the society and Latvia in general.
Mm-hmm. You raise also an interesting question of how sometimes in general society is not appreciating the work of NGOs, and that you constantly need to prove actually that you're doing something. Yet again, also with some NGOs I see, and this is maybe my subjective point of view, and again, it's because it's so easy to criticize from outside. I think, again, you know, the method that they're using is not very beneficial. But what do you think are the main obstacles? Like, why there's so much hesitancy to really critically look at your work and maybe change, not to reproduce leaflets over and over again, but do something that could actually make an impact and talk to your audience? And maybe I could give a floor to Kārlis to start with. What are your thoughts on this?
On obstacles?
On obstacles. Yeah, since you're working also with research and NGOs.
Well, I would like to as well say the thank you obligatory at being here. But maybe I'll start with something that was before, and then I'll transform my talk to your question. I think impact, social impact, as you said, has become a way of proving one's legitimacy of doing things that you actually get funded for. And this is the case not only in NGOs, it's the same case with research organizations. You have social impact criteria for every project that you do, and actually one of the social impact tools, measurements of efficiency of all kinds of things, of programs of change that are being done for researchers, is actually doing things like program evaluations. And this is sort of the thing that puts together research impact from one side and on the other side, proving legitimacy or trying to evaluate a variety of projects in order to improve them, or in order to stop them in case sometimes might, as you said, there might be serious harm that is done by a program that is intended for good things. If we talk about obstacles, this is also coming together, as we might be thinking that social impact assessments are also something that comes in connection with research organizations or companies, consultancies that are doing such evaluations. So that's not sometimes easy to add that to the projects, to add additional dimension that is often associated from one side kind of potential criticism that might as well be problematic to the legitimacy of the project that you want to get from the assessment, but then you think, what's it going to be? And from the other side, it's actually like the challenges that come with actually doing that, and from a side that improves it really well. And from a research side, actually, there is not that much as well capacity on the research in the research environment. Plus, if I would talk from what is the social impact part in the university side, well, this is not particularly high-valued type of research, right? If you do international publications, this is highly valued. If you do impact assessments, this is, you know, something that will not advance your career that much. So this is something that you do as, you know, is your social impact part of a research that you try to add towards scientific capacity. So this is like from a research organization perspective also a big challenge to deal with all the regimes of value that say that one type of thing might have more impact for this or that, but then you have to negotiate that in the middle. So there's obstacles on both sides, I would say.
Interesting aspect, because there's a fear of actually being criticized or finding out that the programs that you're doing might not work, and thus also losing your faith in the for funders or anyone really. I mean, I can relate to that, having been in NGOs. Liva.
Yeah, and I think that's very much connected with our mindset, how we work. So we think about this one activity, one project that we do, and we don't think about long term, how this activity, what part of this activity takes from our bigger scope or bigger objective. And and so we finish this project and we lose interest in what it has done. But like if we see potentially that it's adding to our bigger value that we want to create with the general work of our NGO, for example, then it makes sense to see whether it was positive or negative. And another aspect, maybe it's just like individually, you are maybe a little bit afraid to see that you are not doing well enough, you know, like it's, this being critical on yourself, I think is also challenging sometimes to admit and to change, and then like how you will change.
How about Latvian Scout and Guide Association?
Well, I think what you said is this short and long term, and that what always they ask after the projects is this short term or the direct impact. And the scouting, we are doing some activities. I don't know, for example, like direct for our community. Some good deed, I don't know, easy or simply example, picking up some garbages, and you can see like there's direct result because it's more cleaner and it's good. But one of the core things in scouting is this personal development, and that's what you see like after years, and that's like this long-term impact, and it's not really easy to prove it, that there will be some differences in, and I think in Latvia it's also not so easy to do it, because there's example like British Scouts, what they did a research and they were interviewing like elderly people, 50, 60, 70 years, and what they asked if they have been scouts when they were younger. And the result was that the ones who were scouts for at least 4 years when they were children, they were like really active participants in their communities. They had like a more brighter look to their lives. They had like a better health, and like the mental health and also the physical health. And that's a really good result, but it's like you can see it after 50 or 60 years. And I think in Latvia it's not, we can't do such a research right now because it's just 30 years of NGOs and after the Soviet occupation when we get free. But I think we can start to do something like this. But I think the problem or the challenges that we have to share and show the immediate results. No one is asking for these long-term results.
An interesting point maybe also how often we are accessing negative impacts, like what
measurement after 5, 10, 15, 20 years when we talk about, in my field, when we talk about violence prevention. So the things and competences you need to have as a youngster to create and maintain healthy relationships. So what's happening with you when you're 15 and then when you're 20, 25 and so on. And it's not, well, it benefits for the whole society, not only for the individual. And it's time to time it's sad to see that it's not valued enough in our society, that we are expecting that young people, when they are becoming young adults, that then they will be socially active and build healthy relationships and so on and so forth. But can we really follow up on them when we do, I don't know, a workshop or a camp, or they have been part of a program for 3 years? Yeah. So what's happening with them later on? And also a lot of programs which are for free till you're 18, they end, right? And then where you can still build your competences and change your values and belief systems once you're getting older, and the pressure and the things what, I don't know, society and yourself, you're expecting from yourself, they are also changing and therefore shifting your priority.
Evaluate behavior change and change in the way how people think about certain things, especially if you're doing certain kind of educational programs or social programs that bring people together. Of course, there is this short-term change that you can just do before and after assessments, right? Either quantitative, qualitative, or some experimental type of research methods. But, of course, this is not going to be all that the impact is. It's going to be maybe building up later. And this is also a question when we have these assessments that are part of the funded projects that end at some point. Well, that is fine. The question is whether there is actually always a need for us to research these people who were part of these programs after this while. Of course, we might think that this will ensure that the program is legitimate, and there might be some, and we might actually think when we do the project that, later after some years we might consider this. But whether that's needed, I think when we talk about social impact as a tool of bureaucracy that is also highly have become like that, then we also have to, I think, be clear that there's, for some things, we have enough data at some point, and then we don't need to follow people every day and then see that this is happening. So I think we have to, when we see the complexity, this is one, thinking long term, but on the end, it's also there's some point where social impact can become too much of a bureaucracy that researchers are doing a lot of time at, and it has no social impact whatsoever itself. So just another thing, but to just have the balance there.
Maybe just adding that we cannot also say that if we look at those people in 10 years, we can't really say that it was only our project or our activities. There are also so many other things that come inside, and maybe if our activity is combining with something else, some good positive aspects, that will bring this person somewhere far, and on the other hand, if there's something else affecting this person in a wrong way or in a way that we didn't expect, then again, is it our activity that brought that person somewhere else?
Especially when I think of the Latvian small society, I think there's a generation that has been brought up by different non-formal educational programs, and they have traveled from organization to organization and have benefited. So I think it's even a common collegial work for some benefit to happen. But I have a question also to the Association of the Social Entrepreneurship of Latvia. What are the tools or practices that companies use to assess their social impact, and how does that work?
That's a tricky question. I think as we all know, there's no one toolbox or one tool set that can fit everyone, as the social impact it depends so much on your activities or on your objective, what you want to achieve, or what the organization or enterprise wants to achieve. Then it is very hard to establish one set, and this is also what we were discussing with our social entrepreneurs. You won't be able to open a page and download the perfect set that will help and measure your impact right away. But and as Maria told, that we have created these 9 tools in this project, and those tools, I think it's a very good start to start thinking about your impact, start thinking where you want to be and how to measure it. because I think the biggest question here is how how each organization can find the appropriate tools to measure. And as Carlis said, like, do we really need to measure? Do we really need this data that is not necessary? So I think it's also very important to understand why and what you want to measure. So yeah, I think I'm sure that Latvian Youth Council will share also the link to the tools, and you can check it and see it yourself. And I think it's a very good toolbox to use in your team to discuss about your organization, about where you want to be, and about what kind of effects of your activities you have. And then, of course, then you choose the indicators and see how you can measure them.
Center Marta has made an effort also within various projects to access your impact, also with the cooperation with the university. But can you tell a little bit about your successes, but maybe also you can share some not so much successes, some failures on the way, so we all can learn.
Starting from the failures or the challenges, or really an aspect you need to think of is what kind of collaboration you are going to establish with those who will be doing the assessment of your program. Are they involved since the very beginning of the program? Do they understand what actually program does? Have they been part of your workshops, for instance? Like what kind of, so it's not only, okay, there has been a story about what has happened, so can you measure, what we left out there, but how active they were part of the project itself, and maybe even, I think, in one of the ideal scenarios, if you can build this cooperation starting with the idea of the project, that you build it up together, and then the researcher part can be done by the professionals or experts who have been there since the very beginning when idea was born, and then follow through the process and seeing its journey. So that's something what we learned, that we had this great cooperation with Carlis and his colleagues, that they actually took part in our workshops and questioned our approaches, and that's also I think part of the quality of relationship you're building up is that how open you are for the feedback. And because, once you are living with something what you really believe in, and you are, going to bed and waking up with this idea of the initiative or project or whatever, then it's very easy to lose focus, because you so strongly believe in the thing that it's very healthy. I think that there is someone who can ask critical questions from outside, and not to damage your idea, but like to help it to become even more stronger. So that's another lesson learned, to be open to the feedback provided, and ask for it as well. What success story is that the project what we did together was, I would say, rather small. Maybe Carlos will have a different point of view, but I think it's as we were measuring or trying to get feedback on the value and belief and behavioral changes in young people once they went through the program we provided to them. The groups were, or the people who we assessed, if I can say like that, was rather small, and it gave like a very, 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 very vague in a way perspective of what's going on, and it was more about individual stories, which were great. I mean, the feedback was great, but it cannot really represent the whole field or the whole program what we were doing, because it wasn't only about 10 young people who did the interviews or provided feedback. It was about 10 times more. So what's going on there? So how we can really emphasize from this one thing. So that's another challenge what I think we faced.
Maybe, Madara, for the audience, you can also briefly explain what the program was about. What did you, and how did you decide to measure that,
this
actually?
Happens when you just live, with the idea, so I just totally forget to tell you what exactly we were doing. So the program is involving young people into the cycle of workshops, which are all based in non-formal education and led by trainers, trained from our side, like adults and youth workers, and together with young people in small groups, they meet once a week, or basically very regularly, through 17 workshops where they touch upon different topics important for adolescents, starting from friendships, relationships in school and family, hobbies, and slowly building up towards what is gender equality, what is gender as such, and sexuality and addictions and sexual reproductive health and so on, and building up towards unhealthy relationships and violence and bullying and how to avoid or eliminate these things in their lives.
Carlos, maybe then you can continue with your perspective on the same research.
From our side, I read what Marta said, that for one side, we approached the project at the point where it was already started. So there was already someone else who was doing some other assessment. So this was sort of the continuity part was, we jumped into it at some point and took evaluation of one cycle of training the people who were going to work with youth in this project, and participated in this training. And then we also participated in some of the actual program learning cycles, and interviewed before and after the people that came to these workshops, as well as to the people who went to the training and were the trainers in the program. So this was the part that we did. We did qualitative interviews, and we assessed sort of the changes in how people think about gender, sexuality, violence. We could not evaluate how people act in situations of violence and in situations that actually this might be important. So this was out of our reach in that sense. So what we could do is to get through the process, with the whole process evaluation that was done by the sort of the team leaders that were sort of leading these workshops. So this was part of that, was just getting more profound feedback from the part that Madra was also already collecting all kinds of feedback and having actually more information that we had on that side. But we took like very specific sort of fragments and of 3 groups and evaluated the change of how people think about gender, sexuality, and relationships. So this is a part of a focus on more change in more of a belief system part. So this is a very particular kind of thing. So in the assessment, we had assessment done by the program, by the people in their own words, in the sense that we tried to put together as a systemic part of how the program practically works. And then on the other side, there's the change in the way how people think about gender, sexuality, violence, including the trainers part, which we thought was very important in the process. That we also came up with some potential improvements there. So that was basically the process of this particular assessment. But my colleagues have done program evaluations in many other programs, especially dealing with violence preventions with other organizations, which is sort of, we came in there as people who research violence prevention, and especially youth relations and related to sexuality and gender. So this was something that we came in as researchers doing like very topic-specific research already, that we then sort of collaborated on for our social impact purposes as well, that we did with other institutions in Latvia, so that using this as also some data that can be used outside of the program. And that's what you mentioned about sharing, that this kind of sharing part, that program evaluation, if you work with researchers who work with this thing already, whatever your field of change is, or in social entrepreneurship, this already creates like multiplying effects, and potentially of using that data and understanding some other things. But of course, if we would assess our own assessment as you did, so these were fragments Like, we did not have the capacity to evaluate all groups or work with all trainers, and this is actually very important for people working practically on that everyday sense, and researchers' capacity is also limited. So this is also this, we get these fragmented results that we use to improve, but we don't get the whole picture with these impact assessments as well.
And how and what have you done in the Scout and Guide Association? Which projects have you assessed?
Well, okay, about my master thesis, it was more about the citizen education and how we in the scouting and guiding are doing this. And what I did, I made a questionnaire for our scouts and guides, and did some focus groups and interviews. And of course, what others said before, that you can't really look at your job critically, because you see the positive things, and that's what you want to share, these positive things, and maybe also I believe that the scouts and guides how they looked at the things was also from the positive perspective, and of course the results were quite good. That these things about the citizen education, like the cooperation with others, intercultural experience, the sense of belonging to the scouting, guiding, to the local community or Latvia, all these things they said, oh, it's positive, and it's because of the scouting, because they had some experience and activities led to these things. But what I missed was like something like a control group with like the same questions for the non-scouts to compare the results. And that's what the other scout associations, like in Estonia and the British Scouts and the World Association of Scouts have made. And then it's easier to show that, look, Scouts are 10% physically active than the non-Scouts, or they are more looking positive to their communities and care of them than non-Scouts. And that's what I missed. But if you ask about what we have done, like an organization, then it's really important for us to get the feedback from the participants after the events, also from the organizers, but we haven't done it like very, it's not the same system always, so we can't really use these data for some further research or something like that. So we get it like after the event, we can say, yeah, this was good, this was not so good, but it's not like we can use them up. Okay, we can use them after, but we can't really collect them together to make some bigger look at it.
Companies have this feedback whether somebody is buying their products or services. At the same time, NGOs might apply for new funding, and we might not really take a critical look at ourselves. And I've heard an argument also of, well, it would be nice to evaluate our work, but we don't have funding for that, or we don't have time resource. And in a way, in my kind of understanding, it should be integrated in how the organization functions, to assess, evaluate all the time, how do you work, get some feedback. But often we do wait for some funding opportunities and justify sometimes the lack of it, of why we don't do that. So my question probably would be what would be interesting also for the audience, where did you get the money for it? Or is it a practice already within organizations that you do? Or how was that funded? Or was University of Latvia contributing somehow as well, your sources?
In our case, it was the case, because in our case, we actually approached Madara and with a proposal that we would like to collaborate. So it was, you already had someone doing the impact assessment, but we were sort of saw that this person is very busy, I think. So yeah, we kind of arranged this thing through our own funding that we've been doing for some time as part of building social impact for research project on violence prevention. So this was kind of our social impact dimension, that funding that we used from a project that's financed by Ministry of Education and Science in Latvia. Yeah,
I'm smiling because you came as a miracle in my professional life, because I was like, oh my God, what we can do with this? Like, we don't have like money for that, but we desperately need it, and you know, things are not going well, and then it's just like an email. It's like, okay, so this happens when you really talk around about what you're doing. You know, it's like, what if you know someone who knows someone who knows someone who is in a need for something to be researched on? You know, so I think this is what happens. But yeah, and it's also a lesson to be taken away from this experience is that to you know, when you're preparing this project proposal, and especially if there is if there is no limits on this aspect, so always think about allocating resources for the evaluation. You know, it doesn't need to be like an enormous amount of money or time, but it's important that it is there. And also, this is a takeaway for myself as well, is that don't expect yourself to know everything about everything, right? And to think about professionals who are experts in this field. So yeah, like funding-wise, I think it's important to look for funding opportunities which already include this aspect in the application form as well. Yeah.
How about scouts and guides?
Well, as Mother said, it was a miracle. We are waiting for this miracle that someone like professional, like university or researchers will come to us and say, well, we want to look at the social impact of scouting and guiding, or the youth organizations or youth field itself. But yeah, we have think about it, and we have made some plans, but we haven't find a foundation for this. But yeah, that's something that we want to do. And I hope that also, well, the Ministry of Education or the state will say, well, let's do something like this, and make a research to see if, like, what the organization Scouts and Guides, 4-H, Latvian Youth Council, if they are doing the things that they are saying they do, and do this research. That would be a great. Yeah, I think this collaboration with researchers, university, ministry, and the organizations, that will be the best way how to do it. Not just that we are finding some money or foundation for, and do just for the Scouts, but I think for the whole field it would be the best how to do it. But but how to find the money, yeah, I don't know.
So I hear that there's an idea also actually to network among the students, because I suppose that they have a need for a field also to research, and there's an opportunity actually to have a pro bono work maybe also from them. How is the Latvian Social Entrepreneurship Association dealing with research?
Yeah, I think we never have time for these kind of things that can maybe wait, or that is not urgent or burning right now, so we always like postpone it. But I think it's very important to allocate some time, I don't know, monthly, or just to start thinking about it. And we are also using the term social impact management instead of measurement, because measurement sounds very precise, you know, and management is more, okay, it's more about the concept itself, that we take this first step to start thinking about it, or like to start thinking how, or if it's possible to measure it at all. So yeah, as you all mentioned, there are some funding possibilities where basically you apply for a project and it includes possibility to get some funding also for this evaluation process. But yeah, mostly it seems that it's left for the organizations themselves. But I think it's also important to understand the benefit of it for the organization to then see the need of assessing it or managing it.
Thank you. And a question to everyone, how do you think, what would be the ways to motivate youth organizations, municipalities, anyone involved in youth work or social change work, actually to use the social impact measurement or management more often? Because indeed, if you think that we are here to make a change, then we should be automatically motivated actually to critically look at ourselves and change. Nevertheless, it's not always the case. But what is your personal opinion? Like, what is there to be done in order to actually promote, like, hey, yeah, there are more tools that you could use, and it's necessary sometimes to step away from kind of this what is right and what is used to change some things. How to push them a little bit more. No strategies. How do you motivate yourselves to keep doing that?
Yeah, I don't know if we know, are they already doing it, right? Yeah. Because there's no like concrete sharing happening, and it's I'm saying that for myself as well. Like, can we share more about and therefore inspire others? So. Because there have been moments also in my professional life when, you know, someone says like, okay, we measured that and that and that and this and that come out and so we changed that and that. And then you go like, but actually we have been doing this, but not in very aware way. And I believe that colleagues might feel similar, that we are so caught up in our daily work and the things what we used to do in a specific way, courage in a way, right, to get the response. And saying that to myself as well, to look for opportunities to educate yourself how to do this evaluation or this management, right? Okay, because you might know a lot about, you know, leading workshops on non-formal education, but like, what about evaluating what you did there in maybe in a different way, how you have used is from which you can learn.
I'd like to continue from this because I think it relates to what you said about taking social impact not as measurement but as management, but even more so as a value. And in this sense, like, it is becoming more and more of a value that is related to specific toolboxes, tools, and that, you know, relate to you know, making very precise efficiency criteria. But it is the case that people already have a lot of knowledge when they do these projects. It is the case that even if you don't have a report or percentages or whatever it is that comes from scientific toolboxes of assessment or workshop design thinking-based assessments, you still have that knowledge somewhere, right? And there's opportunities to have like a social impact workshop together by organizations, by not having these reports, but by just bringing these ideas, these, I don't know, sharing failures or whatever it is, and create, you know, within, you know, it is like a tool with which you share the way how organizations are creating impact and how they have very tacit knowledge of how they have achieved it, even without assessments or percentages or you know, specific ways of actually measuring it. So I think, you know, this is one part. And with that, of course, with this building of it as a value, you can already build the knowledge and understanding as well, because if you want to include in the project social impact assessment or environmental impact assessment, all kinds of impact assessments, you have to know some of the methods. You have to be aware of the kind of research that can be done, or randomized control trials, or you know, very specific methods of measuring behavior or belief change. So this becomes an option, and people already have a tacit knowledge of these things and have insider knowledge of that. If you work with these projects, before the person goes into another type of career or whatever happens.
Yeah, and I think it's like also for organization looking for maybe more sense or like this next step. Okay, we're doing these activities. Okay, like 10 people came to our workshop or training, but did they hear me? Did they listen to me? Did they take something away? Not even that they learned something, but just like were there this like little click, you know, like that it did something. So I think it's really depends on the organization or like the mindset of organization, whether they want to know it. And as you said, like courage. Do I want to know what they think about our work? And if they don't have the same opinion as we do, like, what can we do? Can we change it? Can we change our activities? So I think it's like basically the interest. And then of course, if the results are like great, then like sharing it to the wider world and I don't know, sharing it with some professionals who can like some financial opportunities maybe, you know, like to just show how good you are. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's really important to value this, that you do this social impact, and it can help you to prove what you are doing. What I said in the beginning, that what we have to do is always to prove where are we good at, what are the impact of what we are doing, and I think, yeah, that's why we have to do some social impact, why we have to evaluate and assess the things that we are doing is again and again for this improvement, because, yeah, we have to say and share where we are good at, that finally someone will see it.
But maybe one also problematic is that nowadays everyone strives for bigger numbers. You know, you have to reach thousands of people so that your work would count as something meaningful. But sometimes it is that you had this discussion with one person and you saw that you helped this person, or, you know, like it's also very valuable, and it actually helps, I think, youth workers or no matter who it is, to like keep on going with your work. And it doesn't matter that like 100 people didn't hear you or so.
Yeah, focus is something that's also very, very cool these days, actually, that the organization is very much focused on quality instead of like quantity. What does it mean that it will be retweeted 1,000 times, right? Or it will be viewed? Does it make a difference? And one thing that I also thought of while you were talking is that actually this fear of feedback, of receiving, oh, okay, we are not doing enough of a work, and having this embarrassment actually can be turned into the celebration, because we rarely, especially in kind of activist organizations which work for environmental protection, which work for animal welfare and so on, we rarely celebrate the impact that's actually been done, and having these tools on this integrated practice in organizations can be really beneficial, actually, to say, well done, you know, it's enough for now, and it's time to rest and celebrate time now and then.
But also it's kind of like encouragement. You say like, okay, we have done this, like you all helped us to achieve this, so maybe people will get even more involved. So it also can help to involve participants.
I wanted to add this one, because this is a very particular sentiment in activist organizations, because before you do and want to achieve this change, you believe that it should have already happened, and then you know what to do with the impact assessment. It's a bit, you know, not that in sense, you know, you have wanted social impact and big, and this is what you have achieved at that point or not, or you might have done better or whatever. So this kind of impact assessment is somewhat, or you know, management or value is you know, somewhere in the middle there. You know, it's something we can think of as organizations. But at the same time, you know, it's sometimes you just celebrate. You don't need that assessment. it's a value. It's been done in a sense. You have seen it. Okay, you know, fine. But with talking about the numbers, it is the case that, you know, this can also blind sometimes, that because social impact in NGOs, in social you know, entrepreneurship, in research as well, is a kind of a profit margin that, you know, would be for companies, and this is what you work with in order to get more resources to do more work. But sometimes, you know, we don't need to grow. It's enough. So all these narratives of climate change, of doing more, and you know, it's coming towards doing good for people, for a specific amount of people.
It is this point when I would like to also look at the audience and ask if you have some questions, or Maria, you have seen some comments or questions online. And if you do, I would welcome you to introduce yourself and address the question to specific panelists that you see, so we have a focused discussion. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Hello. Hello, my name is Sigita. I'm from Riga Youth Center Canieris, and I have a question, maybe to mostly to university. If we look to Europe and social impact measurements, do we have leaders to look up for how they do that? I don't know, country or university who are like, yeah, this is our field. We are like really working on that, and we're like, oh, so let's follow you. Yes, do we have leader in a way that we have example to see how they do it, why they do it, and we can try to be the same.
Yeah, actually, I don't know. I don't have an answer to this. I know with my colleagues that actually this is a bit of complex thing, because for example, I'm from an anthropology department in University of Latvia. And with my colleagues, we have been doing impact assessments for various NGOs as part of different projects, also as part of projects applied from the NGO side as well as projects from our side. So this has been something that all of us learned sort of by process. So we have some people who have gone through this, but we actually don't teach it, for example, for anthropology students, which would be something to teach actually. And this is something that I think is something we should eventually develop as a course. And you know, so that there is a possibility to actually have these skills there that, you know, we learned somehow with you know, some trial and error, let's say. But actually, I have not really assessed the field of who and which organizations are doing that, and which do similar kind of, you know, have similar kind of social impact as a value of doing research. So at least we have this public anthropology center with which we hope to do that. But we're actually very we're doing these things, as you said, like on a personal relationship basis, and we don't advertise them, so you wouldn't find all these impact assessments. We actually rarely publish them because we usually send them mostly to the program coordinators, and there's some usually as well some sensitive information. So this many of the impact assessments are actually something that sits with the people who have done the program. So this is something that, you know, hasn't grown, at least from our department. It's a challenge sometimes with data protection. So this is something that, you know, we sometimes don't even share amongst ourselves, these impact assessments. So yeah, I don't know what's the situation and whom to follow and who's doing that, but I know that it's a bit of a challenge because even we don't advertise that. Yeah.
Two questions from the audience online, and one of the questions, it's not for a particular panelist, but maybe the one who feels the most confident can answer. So the first question is how the organization can make sure that the way how they measure their impact is objective. For example, that in questionnaires they don't give questions that are kind of indicating the answer that they want.
I guess this is also a question that I can work with. It's actually, this is the challenge, because often it's the case that if I'm going to make a survey and it's going to work out and I'm going to understand the feedback and the change, but it's actually very complex to create the kind of survey does not put words into someone's mouth, and to actually have, especially if you deal with, for example, in our case we wanted to deal with change in thinking. So with a survey, it's actually extremely complex. So we did qualitative interviews with questions that specifically were designed not to put ways of thinking in people's minds. So you design a question that is non-leading, that does not lead to a particular answer, or it's as neutral as possible, but still kind of talks about, let's say, violence and sexuality in a particular kind of way. It's very hard. It takes brainstorms for for researchers to develop this kind of qualitative interview. With surveys, it's even more of a thing that you sometimes it's not impossible. But there are possibilities to do that. I will not get that much into detail, but if you really think about the words that are used in formulations, if you really think about scales that are used, if you really think about what do you offer in that survey, and for that you can actually do it as an organization, as an NGO. You don't need a researcher as to actually develop it. You can create a survey, then collaborate with a consultant, for example, who has done many surveys and who could just add a few nuances to the scales or whatever the question formulation was, and to make it more so that it will actually show if there was change in behavior, thinking, or practices, or not.
Yeah, and thank you. And the second question is, what should the NGOs in Latvia should do differently regarding the social impact management?
Talk, but yet if you have some last bits that you would like to give some feedback to Latvian NGOs, this may be the time.
Maybe to try out and start doing it, right? Just to, I mean, again, I'm not saying to measure everything as we already discussed, but to see like where they are going for, like what they want to achieve, and if they can actually measure that at all.
I think another important thing is to, if you ask for feedback and there has been given advices what should be done differently, then you try and incorporate those advices and make the change and make it visible, because it's not only for the sake of your professional growth or for the quality of the program, but it also shows to those who provided that feedback that, hey, their opinion matters, right? And then that's, I think, one important aspect, especially working with young people, that when they share some ideas, well, maybe next time we can do like this and like that, and then you take that advice and really make it happen, then it really strongly empowers them to step up next time as well, and to kind of believe that their words matter and that they can make the change as well, not only by themselves actively doing something, but also giving advice to adults, right? which is challenging by itself in the roots. So, yeah, that's another thing I was thinking of when we were having this discussion.
Pauline, do you have something to add? Mm-hmm. Do we have other comments, questions? Yes.
So I have a question as well. I'm from Latvian Youth Council. My name is Daniels Liets, and I do believe that when we talk about social impact, the longer we do it, the more valuable it becomes. And but I have a feeling, at least in the youth NGOs, the problem there is that typically NGOs focus on work depending on the projects, which last typically between a few months to 2 years maximum. And the other thing is NGOs typically also have full rotation with the members, and the member of the board, they completely change. And so I just have a question. So how can we solve the long-term, how can we measure long-term social impact in NGOs? Should that be left on the NGOs themselves, or should somebody from the outside come and do that on the whole field? Thank you.
Do you want to address the specific panelist, or is it open?
It's open.
Mm-hmm. Leah?
Maybe I believe that the organization has to decide upon it, like what's the strategy. either indeed establish some kind of guidelines, and even though all the board members changes, they still can like follow these guidelines, or again, I don't know, take it as like a service from somebody else. But again, if everyone changes in the organization, then they have to also believe that it's necessary. So I guess it really depends on the organization and how they see it and what they want to achieve with it, I guess.
Well, I think it can also become part of the training for the newcomers, that you not only share about, okay, what are the tasks, the burning topics or the running projects, but you also kind of share the values of the organization, and therefore, so making a social impact should be, I think, in the heart of every NGO and every organization in general. So yeah, how this transition is happening, and that's and thank you for the colleagues. So thank you for that.
Well, yeah, we are like a member organization, and like the scouts. Okay, there are some who are being scouts for a year or even less, or for 10 and 20 years, and. Yeah, and I think then it's easier when you can ask to the members who are for a long term. But well, people are changing, but I think that if we are looking to these ones who have been in the Latvian Youth Council Scouts or in some other organizations as an alumni, and ask them after they are, I don't know, graduating some programs or something like that, that could also help to do some measurements for a long term, because yeah, they are changing, but it's 21st century. We still can have contacts with them, and I don't think that's the biggest problem. But we have to look at these former members as a resource that we can use. Not okay. We have changed what we are doing now.
Yeah, about the rotation. Like one thing is to on onboarding, when someone joins the organization, to have the part where knowledge is shared, but also the exit. So whenever someone exits the organization, that at that point, there's a common way of how to, build that knowledge into something else. And this does not need to be like super bureaucratic or making a specific way that this person has to produce a report or something like that. Not really. I think this can be like negotiated by every organization of how they wish to have this exit, for example, and how do you do that? And this can be discussed, and it could be different sometimes with people leaving the organization. That is one thing. So that there can be established an exit process that also contributes to knowledge collection that remains to others. And the other side is that the question about whether it should be done by someone outside. I think first it's about the strategy. It's about making a commitment towards that social impact, or whatever you call it, or transformative experiences that an organization provides, or whatever. That there is some kind of talk about that, which is the goal, and the goal does not have to be to grow, but to establish like something that is of good importance to the people that benefit from that, even if they are only the organizational members, so that this can, from that on, then you can decide, when you have this strategy and idea, whether you need specific assessments, maybe to which projects are needed, to which they're not. And then this can be understood, because for all projects, for very short or longer, two years mentioned, it's probably not necessary always, but some might be, and that these some points, and when especially you see some pain points within a project, then someone from outside as well could collaborate, or that could even be. It can even be university students sometimes who do specific projects within their studies that is not of a cost thing that much.
Yes, hello. I'm Ville Leino, and I work as a planning officer for the city of Espoo in the youth services there. And this is, I'm not sure if this is a question, but this is a rant, because I really love the discussion you have been going on. And I was thinking, like in Finland, I'm sure the situation is the same in Latvia. In Finland, the government gives different like subsidiaries to companies, and it's about 7 to 8% of our national budget every year. They give money to the companies, like, so that the companies can sell us nice stuff. We can buy nice stuff, and no one asks those companies, like, what is your social impact? And I mean, many of those companies, they use child labor, they ruin our environment, they do all kinds of nasty stuff. So I think that this is like, I don't know, why is it that NGOs have to constantly be talking about the value of their work? And why can't we as a society move on from trying to, prove something that we all know that is true? We all know that it's beneficial for people to work together and to do something that doesn't involve money. That's given. I think everyone knows that. So that's one thing. And I had some other point also, but I forgot it. But yeah. Anyways, I really respect everyone working in an NGO, and it's been a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Do we have more comments or questions? The last ones.
Thank you, Willa, for this comment. It will be, I think, question for all ladies from NGOs and also your association. I will start with the Marta Center. You mentioned that together with university, you measured the social impact of that program of youngsters. And my question would be, you little bit already described the process, how it happened, that there was a person giving questions to the youngsters, and in the end, results were showing that it's positive. So that's one method. And one project. So I will maybe kindly ask to share some projects you were measuring also impact. And but that's first example. And there's the second part. What do we do? What did you do when you had those measures? Did you make decision to continue program? Did you go to get to government to get money for it? Did you went to businessmen to get money for it? Did you went to press, to media, to show what are we going to do now because we did this, now we have this impact result measured, and we are stopping, we are continuing, we are changing, we are making it law in the country that everybody does it. So what we do with this measurement, with the social impact? Yeah, it's like two questions. A little bit long for the ending, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, in our case, briefly, is that we are still continuing with our program, and it has been going on since 2010, and we are thinking how we can make it broader and more qualitative, and it's an ongoing process. So this one evaluation of this social impact, it's a tiny drop. It's a very important drop, because for us it was a starting point to really see, okay, with what we should begin. In our case, we would like to put more emphasis on the training of the trainers, and how to provide more support for youth group leaders, for the adults who are running these groups. Not only, in the very beginning they're going through the training, but how and what they need in order to continue the group, apart from financial support, which most likely they're getting from their municipalities and so on. So it's more about, the training of trainers and raising the quality of youth work within this program. And also that was, this collaboration was a push for us now to to find a way how to attract outsource experts from Great Britain to do monitoring and evaluation on the whole youth program in March Center. So this was our story. Yeah, that's basically was a kickoff for us.
Yeah, for us, we of course evaluate projects, but also like our daily activities, and that's well, we hope to keep on doing them, of course. But yeah, it's all sort of like small things like checking if this specific activity gave some kind of additional value, whether the members established a collaboration, whether somebody got more interested in a field, established a social enterprise, developed social entrepreneurship idea, or so on. Working with municipalities, whether in that area there were more, I don't know, even NGOs appearing to civil society, talking with political parties, and checking if they include social entrepreneurship in their what do you call those? The list of promises, and checking after the elections whether they still have them on, or like whether they're gonna do something about it. So it's like all kind of small daily tasks. But I think that the biggest challenge is to keep on doing and not to like lose them. You know, to keep on checking and seeing where it leads, because this one tiny activity might in a few years grow bigger, you know, and to see that it's exactly from that point. So, and I think it kind of motivates these changes, or these little things motivates you to actually do more.
Well, yeah, we haven't made such a assessment, but as I said before, that yeah, we do the feedbacks and we see the children who are growing up in our organization, and as Carl said, the knowledge is within us, and we know that we do the impact for these children, and yeah, we know the value of our job, of course, when we can prove it, we can make it more qualitative with the training for trainers and the scout leaders. But if you ask what we do with this measure or the measurement, then yeah, that is this kind of proof that we can put when we apply for the projects. That these are the results what we have done, and but also that I think there was this that we don't look critically to our work, but if we see that something is not working, it helps us to improve these things, and yeah, to make it better, and to focus on them. That yeah, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, not yeah.
Maybe I can add one thing. This is not related to the question, but the previous comment actually, which I've been thinking a lot about currently. Because you know, it's these social impacts are a bit of a currency, but both in research for NGOs in order to gain legitimacy for your programs, for the things that you do, and then you potentially can get projects in a project-based environment. And on the other hand, we have these companies who have clearly negative impacts. Like in Riga, we have a long discussion of slot machine. Gambling halls or payday loans and things like that, which have been proven in assessments to have negative social impacts, even though they bring huge profits. So this is a thing, to bring social impact assessments there, and actually to be able to make legitimacy with also things that are for profit companies that have either environmentally or socially negative impacts. So so this is also a push in another direction with this round, of course.
Thank you, thank you. Do you have any last quick question still from the audience or comment section? Is there? No? Great. So thank you for the questions and thank you for active listening and participation also to the audience. It is what makes the speakers speak sometimes as well, with your presence and kind of curiosity that you held here. And I also thank all the panelists for devoting again your time, but also for your specific determination also actually to work and promote the social impact and understanding of it within NGOs, university settings, municipalities, and so on. And I also want to thank Maria and Latvian Youth Council for organizing and raising such an important issue of the social impact. And I hope you as the listeners online and also here got some ideas, and I hope you have some first step in your mind as well. What can you do in actually to evaluate, assess your impact, to celebrate it as well as we talked here. And yeah, let's continue these conversations. They matter, and I think we need more of them. So thank you for today. I think that's all from my side, and yeah, have a good day. And I suppose since the networking is a very important aspect as well, and as Madre said, we should share. If you do have some questions after the panel for the panelists that you want to address in private, I think you're welcome to do so, to approach them and ask for help if necessary. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.